My entire family has turned against me because I refused to pay for my daughter's wedding. And now she's threatening to elope and cut me out of her life forever. Before you all jump down my throat, please hear me out because this situation is way more complicated than it sounds. I really need to know if I'm actually the villain here or if I'm just protecting my daughter from making the biggest mistake of her life. If you're enjoying this story, please hit that like button and subscribe to Who's the Villain? AITA for more dramatic family dilemmas. Also, drop a comment letting me know what city you're watching from. I'm curious where all of you are. I'm a 52-year-old father of 2 daughters, Emma, 27, and Sophie, 24. I've been divorced from their mother, Janet, for about 8 years now. The divorce was messy, expensive, and honestly destroyed a lot of what I'd built financially. But I never let that affect my relationship with my girls. I've always been there for them, paid for their college educations in full, helped Emma with her first car, and I've been saving specifically for their weddings since they were little. I'm talking about a dedicated account with roughly $85,000 in it that was meant to be split between both daughters when they got married. Emma met this guy, Derek, 29, about 2.5 years ago at some tech conference in Austin. She works in digital marketing and he's supposedly some kind of software developer. Though from what I can tell, he's been between projects for most of the time I've known him. The first time Emma brought him to meet me was at a family barbecue at my house in July, about 3 months after they started dating. I'll never forget that day. Derek showed up wearing a wrinkled t-shirt with some band logo I didn't recognize, ripped jeans that looked like they cost more than my work pants, and he had this attitude like he was doing us all a favor by being there. When I reached out to shake his hand, his grip was limp, you know the type, like shaking hands with a dead fish. "Hey, Mr. Morrison," he said, barely making eye contact. Not "nice to meet you, sir," or even a proper introduction, just "hey." Throughout that barbecue, Derek sat in the corner on his phone most of the time. My younger daughter Sophie tried to make conversation with him about movies, and he literally said, "I don't really watch mainstream garbage," and went back to scrolling. Emma kept making excuses. "He's just shy around new people. He had a long week at work. You don't know him like I do, Dad." I bit my tongue that day because I didn't want to start things off on the wrong foot. But it got worse. Over the next several months, I tried really hard to give Derek the benefit of the doubt. I invited them to dinner probably 6 or 7 times. Half the time, Derek would cancel last minute with some excuse. The times he did show up, he'd make these passive-aggressive comments about everything. I mentioned I play golf on weekends, and he goes, "Yeah, golf, the sport for people who peaked in the 80s. I told a story about my work in pharmaceutical sales, and he interrupted with some lecture about how big pharma is destroying healthcare in America. Like, "Okay, buddy, you're entitled to your opinions, but there's a time and place." Emma would always laugh it off like he was just being funny or sarcastic, but I could see it wasn't jokes. This guy genuinely looked down on me, on my lifestyle, on everything I'd worked for. And here's the thing that really got under my skin. I'm not some out-of-touch boomer. I consider myself pretty progressive. I voted for Obama twice, I support gay marriage, I recycle for God's sake. But Derek treated me like I was some Fox News watching stereotype just because I'm a divorced dad who happens to make decent money in sales. The real breaking point came last Thanksgiving. I hosted at my place, invited both my daughters, my ex-wife, Janet. We're cordial now for the girls' sake. Janet's new husband, Rick, nice enough guy, whatever. And of course, Emma insisted Derek come. My mother, the girls' grandmother, was also there. She's 79 years old and one of the sweetest people you'll ever meet. We're all sitting around the table, and my mom is telling this story about how she and my late father used to go dancing every Friday night when they were young. It's a story we've all heard a million times, but it makes her happy to tell it, you know? Derek is sitting there with this smirk on his face, and suddenly he goes, "Wow, must be nice to have lived in a time when one income could support a family, and you could just waste money on entertainment every week. My generation can barely afford rent." The table went completely silent. My mother's face just fell. Emma looked mortified, but didn't say anything to defend her grandmother. I put down my fork and said, "Derek, that's really disrespectful. My mother worked as a nurse for 40 years while raising 4 kids. She didn't have it easy." He rolled his eyes, and said, "I'm just stating facts about economic inequality, but sure, make it personal." I lost it. I told him that he was being rude, that he needed to apologize to my mother, and that maybe if he spent less time complaining about his generation and more time actually working consistently, he'd understand the value of hard work. Emma started crying and said I was attacking her boyfriend for no reason. Derek just sat there with his satisfied smile like he'd won something. They left early. Emma didn't talk to me for 2 weeks. Janet called me the next day and said I could have handled it better, but admitted Derek was out of line. Sophie texted me privately saying, "Dad, I love Emma, but I don't like Derek either. He's always like this." That made me feel somewhat vindicated, but I still felt terrible for upsetting Emma. Things were tense for a while, but eventually we patched things up enough to have surface-level conversations. Emma and I agreed to disagree about Derek, and I promised to try harder to get along with him. She promised he'd work on his attitude. Spoiler alert, he didn't. Fast forward to March of this year. Emma calls me, super excited, and tells me Derek proposed. She's over the moon, talking about how romantic it was, how he got down on one knee at some rooftop bar in downtown Dallas. I swallowed every doubt I had and told her congratulations because I love my daughter and I want her to be happy. I asked if we could meet for lunch to celebrate, and she said yes. At that lunch, Emma told me they wanted to get married in October, so about 7 months away at that point. Then she said, "Dad, I know you've been saving for my wedding, and I'm so grateful. Derek and I have been looking at venues, and we found this perfect place in Napa Valley." Napa Valley? California. We live in Texas. She pulled out her phone and showed me pictures of this absolutely gorgeous vineyard estate. "It's $45,000 just for the venue rental," she said, like it was a totally reasonable amount. "And that doesn't include catering, flowers, photographer, my dress, or anything else. We're estimating the total will be around $10,000 to $120,000. I nearly choked on my iced tea. "Emma," I said carefully, "you know I have about $85,000 saved total for both you and Sophie's weddings. That's $4,500 each if we split it evenly." She got this look on her face, like she'd already anticipated this conversation. "Dad, I'm your firstborn, and Sophie isn't even dating anyone seriously right now. By the time she gets married, you'll have saved up more money. This is my one wedding, my one special day." "And what about the other $70,000 or so?" I asked. "You and Derek are planning to cover that?" That's when she dropped the bomb. "Well, actually, we were hoping you'd take out a loan or something. Derek's parents are contributing $15,000, and we can probably save $10,000 by October. But we really love this venue, Dad. I've been dreaming about my wedding since I was a little girl." I took a deep breath. "Emma, sweetie, I'm not taking out a loan for a wedding. That's not financially responsible. And honestly, those numbers are insane. Your mother and I got married for less than $15,000 total back in the day, and it was beautiful." "This isn't 1996, Dad," she snapped. "Weddings cost more now. And I'm not Mom. I don't want some budget backyard party." The conversation got heated. I told her I'd be happy to contribute my original planned amount of $2,500, which is still incredibly generous. She could have an amazing wedding in Texas for that amount. She accused me of being cheap and not caring about her happiness. I said that was unfair and hurtful. We left that lunch on bad terms. Over the next few weeks, Emma barely spoke to me. When she did, it was short responses to my texts. Meanwhile, Sophie told me Emma was complaining to their mom that I was ruining her dream wedding, and that Derek was adding fuel to the fire, saying stuff like, "I told you your dad only cares about money, and he's just trying to control you." Then, about a month ago, Emma and Derek came to my house unannounced. Emma's eyes were red, like she'd been crying. Derek had his arm around her in this protective way that immediately set me on edge. "Dad," Emma said, her voice shaking, "we need to talk about the wedding." I invited them in. We sat in my living room, the same living room where I'd taught Emma to ride her bike through the house when she was 4. Janet was furious. Where we'd watched her favorite Disney movies 100 times, where I'd given her advice before her high school prom. Derek did most of the talking, which should have been my first clue this wasn't going to go well. "Mr. Morrison," he started, and I noticed he still couldn't bring himself to call me by my first name like I'd asked him to a dozen times. "Emma and I have been doing a lot of thinking about the wedding situation. We understand you have certain financial limitations, and we don't want to put pressure on you." Financial limitations. Like I'm some broke deadbeat. I make $140,000 a year and have worked my ass off to get here. "However," he continued, "we've found a compromise. There's a different venue, still in Napa, but slightly less expensive. The total wedding would come to about $95,000. We're asking if you'd be willing to contribute $60,000, which would still leave $25,000 in your account for Sophie's eventual wedding. My parents are upping their contribution to $20,000, and Emma and I will cover the remaining $15,000. I looked at Emma. She wasn't meeting my eyes. "Emma," I said, "is this really what you want? A wedding that costs more than a year of college tuition? That's more than most people's annual salary." "Dad, please," she said, tears starting to fall. "This is important to me. I'm only getting married once." "You say that now," I said, and I know it was a low blow the second it came out of my mouth. "Your mother and I thought the same thing." Emma's face crumpled. Derek stood up. "That's it," he said. "We came here trying to find a middle ground, and you throw your divorce in her face? You're unbelievable." "Sit down," I said, standing up myself. "I'm not throwing anything in anyone's face. I'm being realistic. Emma, you and Derek have been together less than 3 years. You're rushing into this. And you want me to fund a wedding that's clearly beyond everyone's means just so you can impress people?" "It's not about impressing people," Emma shouted, also standing now. "It's about having one day that's special and perfect and about us." "At what cost?" I shot back. "You want me to give you more than 2/3 of the money I saved for both my daughters? What am I supposed to tell Sophie? Sorry, honey, your sister's wedding was more important?" Derek jumped in. "Maybe if you actually supported Emma's choices and respected me as her partner, this wouldn't be an issue. But you've made it clear from day one that you don't think I'm good enough for her." "You're damn right I don't think you're good enough for her," I said. And there it was. The truth I'd been holding back for 2.5 years. "You've been disrespectful to me and my family since the day we met. You can't hold down a steady job. You insult people who don't agree with your worldview. You encourage my daughter to make financially irresponsible decisions. And now you have the audacity to come into my house and demand I bankrupt myself for your wedding? Emma was full-on sobbing now. I can't believe you just said that. I can't believe you hate him that much. I don't hate him, Emma. I just don't think he's right for you. Well, it's not your decision, she screamed. I love him. I'm marrying him whether you like it or not. And you know what? We don't need your money. We don't need you at all. They stormed out. I tried to call after Emma, but Derek practically dragged her to the car. I stood in my doorway watching them drive away, and I felt like the worst father in the world. That was 3 weeks ago. Since then, Emma has blocked me on everything. Phone, social media, email. She changed her number. Janet called me crying, saying I'd pushed our daughter away and that I needed to apologize and just give them the money. Sophie is caught in the middle and feels horrible. She told me yesterday that Emma is talking about eloping with Derek and never speaking to me again. My brother thinks I'm being stubborn and that $60,000 is worth keeping my daughter in my life. My best friend from college says I'm absolutely right to stand my ground and that Emma needs to learn she can't manipulate me. Janet's new husband, Rick, surprisingly, pulled me aside at Sophie's birthday dinner last week and said, Man to man, I think Derek is bad news too, but you might want to pick your battles. I lie awake at night wondering if I'm making the biggest mistake of my life. What if I'm wrong about Derek? What if they're actually perfect for each other and I'm just being a controlling parent? What if Emma never forgives me and I miss my daughter's wedding entirely? But then I think about that $60,000. That's real money. That's years of saving and planning. And it's not even about the money, really. It's about the principle. Emma wants me to fund a lifestyle and a wedding that I don't agree with, for a marriage to someone who has shown me nothing but contempt. I got a text from an unknown number 2 days ago. It was Emma, using a friend's phone. All it said was, Derek and I are getting married at the courthouse next week. Don't bother coming. You've made your choice. I've been staring at that message for 48 hours, and I still don't know what to do. Do I apologize and offer the money, even though I genuinely believe I'm right? Do I stand my ground and risk losing my daughter forever? Do I try to stop the courthouse wedding somehow? My ex-wife says I'm being a stubborn, judgmental ass who's letting his pride destroy our family. My younger daughter is devastated and won't take sides. Derek's parents apparently think I'm a controlling narcissist. Emma told Sophie that much. And Emma thinks I've betrayed her on the most important day of her life. But here's what keeps eating at me. I genuinely believe Derek is wrong for her. I've watched him systematically isolate her from family, make her feel like she has to choose between him and us, and push her into financial decisions that will hurt her future. The wedding is just the latest example. If I fund this, aren't I enabling it all? Last night, I was going through old photos and found pictures from Emma's high school graduation. She was so proud, and I was so proud of her. In the photo, she's hugging me and smiling like she didn't have a care in the world. I remember thinking that day that I'd walk her down the aisle someday, that I'd give a toast at her wedding about what an amazing person she'd become. Now it looks like none of that is happening. And the worst part? I'm not even sure anymore if I'm protecting her or just being a stubborn old fool who can't let go of his own opinions. The courthouse wedding is in 5 days. I don't know if I should show up uninvited, send a letter, call using Sophie's phone, or just let it happen and hope Emma comes back to me eventually. Every option feels wrong. So that's where I am. Family destroyed, daughter not speaking to, me thousands of dollars, and a wedding at the center of it all. Part of me wants to cave, write the check, and hope that being at the wedding is worth more than being right. Another part of me thinks that if I give in now, I'll be funding and supporting a marriage I truly believe will fail. And Emma will resent me either way when it does. Am I the villain here? Did I let my personal dislike of Derek cloud my judgment about what a father should do? Should I have just smiled, written the check, and kept my mouth shut? I honestly don't know anymore. So I need to give you all an update because the situation has gotten about 10 times worse than I ever could have imagined. And I'm honestly questioning everything I thought I knew about my daughter and my family. After I posted about the courthouse wedding being scheduled in 5 days, I spent an entire night pacing my living room, trying to decide what to do. I must have picked up my phone to text Emma 100 times, but what was I supposed to say? Sorry for having standards. Here's the money. Please don't hate me. Every option felt like either betraying myself or betraying her. At around 2 a.m. that night, Sophie called me crying. "Dad, you need to fix this," she sobbed. "Emma called me tonight and she's not okay. She's talking like this is the end of your relationship forever. Like forever, forever." "What do you want me to do, Soph?" I asked, exhausted. "Give in to emotional blackmail?" "I want you to be at your daughter's wedding," she shouted, which was shocking because Sophie never raises her voice. "I don't care about the money or Derek or any of it. Emma's getting married in 5 days and her father won't even be there. Do you understand how messed up that is?" That hit me hard. Sophie hung up, and I sat there in the dark, wondering if she was right. Maybe I was so focused on being right that I'd lost sight of what actually mattered. The next morning, I made a decision. I called my financial advisor, Tom, who I've worked with for about 15 years. "Tom," I said, "I need to know my options for accessing funds quickly." I explained the situation, not all the details, just that I needed to potentially free up more money for my daughter's wedding. Tom was quiet for a moment. "Jim," he said. "My name is Jim." I realized I never mentioned that. "You're talking about the wedding fund, right? The $85,000? "Yeah, but I need to access more, like $60,000 total for Emma." "Okay, so you'd be leaving about $25,000 for Sophie, and you're comfortable with that split?" I wasn't comfortable with any of it, but I said yes. "Jim, I have to ask, and this is as your advisor and your friend. Are you sure about this? Last year you told me this money was sacred, that you'd saved it specifically to be divided equally. What changed?" "I'm about to lose my daughter, Tom." He sighed. "All right. The money is there. It's yours. You can transfer it whenever you're ready. But Jim, think about whether this is actually going to fix the problem or just enable it." I thanked him and hung up. Then I did something I'm not proud of. I called my ex-wife Janet and told her I was willing to give Emma the money. I needed her help reaching out to Emma since I was blocked on everything. Janet's reaction wasn't what I expected. "Oh, so now you're ready to be reasonable?" she said coldly. "After you've already ruined everything and made our daughter feel like garbage?" "Janet, I'm trying to fix this." "You should have thought about that before you told her fiancé he wasn't good enough for her to his face, Jim. What were you thinking?" We argued for about 20 minutes. She eventually agreed to pass along a message to Emma saying I wanted to talk and was reconsidering my position on the money. But Janet made it clear she thought I was only doing this because I was backed into a corner, not because I actually supported the marriage. She wasn't wrong. 2 days passed with no response from Emma. Meanwhile, I started hearing through the grapevine, aka Sophie, about what was happening on Emma's side. Apparently, Derek's family was rallying around them, positioning me as this tyrannical father who was trying to control his adult daughter's life with money. Derek's mother, Linda, who I'd met exactly twice before and seemed pleasant enough, was apparently telling people I was financially abusive and toxic. Sophie also told me that Emma and Derek were still planning the courthouse wedding for that Friday. But now they were also planning to go ahead with the big Napa Valley wedding next year, without me involved at all. They were going to take out loans to cover it. Dad, they're talking about going into 6 figures of debt, Sophie said on the phone, sounding panicked. Emma doesn't even fully understand interest rates. Derek is convincing her it's an investment in their future, and that they can just pay it off over time. That's when something clicked for me. This wasn't about a wedding anymore. This was about Derek deliberately driving a wedge between Emma and her family so he could have total control over her. The expensive wedding, the loans, the isolation. It was all part of a pattern. I called my brother Mike for advice. Mike is 48, married for 22 years, and generally the more level-headed one between us. I explained everything that had happened. "Jesus, Jim," he said when I finished. "You really stepped in at this time." "I know. But Mike, what do I do? Do I give her the money or not?" "Honestly, I think you're both wrong. You're wrong for the way you handled it. Telling the guy he's not good enough right to his face was nuclear. But Emma's wrong for demanding that much money and cutting you off when you said no. And Derek..." Mike paused. "Derek sounds like a manipulative prick, if I'm being honest. But you can't tell Emma that. The more you push against him, the harder she'll cling to him. So I just watch her make a huge mistake. Jim, she's 27 years old. At some point, you have to let your kids make their own mistakes, even big ones." I didn't want to hear that, but I knew he was right on some level. Wednesday came, 2 days before the courthouse wedding. I was at work, barely able to concentrate, when I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. "Dad?" It was Emma. Her voice was small, tired, nothing like the angry person who'd stormed out of my house. "Emma, sweetheart, I'm so glad you called. I've been trying to reach you." "Mom told me you wanted to talk," she interrupted. "I'm calling because Derek is at a job interview and I have about 30 minutes. The fact that she had to wait until Derek was gone to call me made my blood run cold, but I tried to keep my voice calm. "Emma, I love you. I want you to know that before anything else. I love you, and I'm sorry for how I handled things." Silence on the other end. Then, "Are you sorry you said it? Or just sorry I heard it?" Damn, my daughter knows me too well. "I'm sorry I hurt you," I said carefully. "I should have found a better way to express my concerns." "You mean your concerns that my fiancé is a loser who isn't good enough for me?" Her voice was sharp, angry again. "Emma, that's not... Look, can we please meet in person? I have something I want to discuss with you about the wedding. If you're going to offer the money, you can just say yes or no right now. I don't need a lecture with it." "It's not that simple." "It actually is that simple, Dad. Either you support my marriage or you don't. Either you'll help pay for my wedding or you won't. Derek says you're using money to try to control me, and honestly, I'm starting to think he's right." That stung. "Emma, I have never tried to control you. When have I ever used money to manipulate you? You're doing it right now. Holding the wedding money over my head unless I meet your approval. That's literally the definition of control." We were going in circles. I tried a different approach. Okay, forget the money for a second. Can we talk about the loans you and Derek are planning to take out? How do you know about that? Her voice went cold. Did Sophie tell you? She promised she wouldn't say anything. Shit, I'd just gotten Sophie in trouble. Emma, it doesn't matter how I know. I'm worried about you going into that much debt for one day. See? This is exactly what Derek said you'd do. Make it about the debt, about the money, about anything except the fact that you just don't want me to be happy. That is not true and you know it. Do I? Because from where I'm standing, my dad told my fiancé to his face that he's not good enough for me, refused to contribute fairly to my wedding, and is now trying to interfere with our financial decisions as a couple. What part of that says you want me to be happy? I was losing her. I could feel it happening in real time. Emma, please, can we just meet for coffee? Just the two of us? I won't ambush you or lecture you, I promise. I miss my daughter. She was quiet for a long moment. I have to go. Derek will be back soon. Emma, wait. The wedding is Friday at 11 a.m. at the courthouse downtown. If you want to come, come. If you don't, don't. But either way, I'm marrying Derek. And if you can't accept that, then I guess we don't have much else to talk about. She hung up. I sat in my car in the parking lot of my office and cried. I'm not ashamed to admit it. I cried like I hadn't cried since my dad died 10 years ago. That evening, I went to Sophie's apartment. She answered the door looking guilty before I even said anything. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to tell you about the loans. It just came out when we were talking. It's okay, Soph. You did the right thing telling me. I came inside, and we sat on her couch. I need your honest opinion. Am I wrong here? Sophie pulled her knees up to her chest, looking much younger than 24. Dad, you're not wrong about Derek. He is kind of a jerk. And the wedding stuff is excessive. But she hesitated. But what? But Emma loves him. Like, really loves him. And I think the more you push against it, the more she's going to defend him, you know? It's like she's too invested now to admit that maybe rushing into this isn't the best idea. Sunk cost fallacy, I muttered. What? It's an economic term. When you've invested so much into something that you keep investing more, even when it's not rational, because you don't want to admit the original investment was a mistake. Sophie nodded slowly. Yeah, exactly. And Dad? I think Emma knows deep down that you might be right about some things. But she can't admit that now because it would mean, I don't know, admitting she's made a mistake. And Derek is really good at making her feel like it's us against them, like we're the bad guys for not being supportive enough. That's exactly what worries me, Soph. That kind of dynamic, that's not healthy. I know. But what can you do? If you keep fighting it, she'll just cut you off completely. Derek would probably love that, honestly. We sat in silence for a while. Then Sophie said, Are you going to the courthouse on Friday? I don't know. Should I? Dad, she's your daughter. Of course you should go. Even though I don't support the marriage. Sophie looked at me with tears in her eyes. You're not going to support the marriage. You're going to support Emma. There's a difference. Out of the mouths of 24-year-olds, I swear. Friday morning came. I woke up at 6 a.m., even though the courthouse wedding wasn't until 11. I tried on 3 different suits before settling on my navy one, the one I'd worn to Emma's college graduation. I kept thinking about whether I should bring a gift, flowers, something. In the end, I brought nothing. I didn't even know if I'd be welcome. I arrived at the courthouse at 10:45 a.m. I sat in my car debating whether to go in. At 10:52, I saw Derek's car pull up. Derek got out first, wearing a button-down shirt and slacks, the most formal I'd ever seen him. Then Emma got out of the passenger side. She was wearing a simple white dress, nothing like the elaborate gown she'd probably picked out for the Napa wedding. Her hair was done up, and even from across the parking lot, I could see she looked beautiful. She also looked nervous and sad. Derek's parents were already inside, I assumed. A couple of other people I didn't recognize were heading into the building, probably Derek's friends. I watched Emma and Derek walk toward the entrance. Derek had his hand on the small of her back, leaning in to say something to her. She nodded, but didn't smile. I got out of my car. I was about 50 feet behind them when Emma turned around to adjust her dress, and she saw me. Her eyes went wide. She stopped walking. Derek noticed and turned around too. For about 5 seconds, nobody moved. We just stood there in the courthouse parking lot. 3 people who had destroyed each other over the past few months, all frozen in this horrible moment. Then Emma's face crumpled, and she started crying. Derek immediately put his arm around her and glared at me. "What are you doing here?" he called out. "You weren't invited." I walked closer. "Emma told me when and where. I'm her father. I should be here." "You should have thought about that before you made her choose between you and me," Derek shot back. "Derek," Emma said quietly, touching his arm. She looked at me with red, puffy eyes. "Dad, why did you come?" "Because you're my daughter and I love you," I said simply. "That's it. That's the only reason." "Even though you don't approve?" she asked, her voice breaking. "Even though I have concerns," I corrected gently. "Emma, I'm not here to stop you or make a scene. I'm just here. If you want me to leave, I'll leave. If you want me to stay out here, I'll stay out here. But if there's any part of you that wants your dad at your wedding, I'm here." Derek whispered something in her ear. Emma shook her head slightly. They had a brief, heated, whispered conversation that I couldn't hear. Finally, Emma pulled away from Derek and walked toward me. "You can come," she said, not quite meeting my eyes. "But Dad, if you say anything about the marriage or about Derek or try to talk me out of this, I swear to God I will never forgive you." "I won't, I promise." Derek looked furious, but didn't say anything else. The 3 of us walked into the courthouse together in the most awkward silence of my life. The ceremony itself was brief and impersonal. A tired-looking judge, Derek's parents Linda and Frank, who wouldn't make eye contact with me. 3 of Derek's friends, Sophie, who showed up separately and sat next to me, and a court clerk as witness. When the judge said, "You may kiss the bride," I watched my daughter kiss Derek, and I felt like I was watching a train wreck in slow motion. But I smiled and clapped along with everyone else because that's what Sophie's wisdom had taught me. I was there to support Emma, not the marriage afterward. Derek's parents had apparently planned a small lunch at a restaurant nearby. Emma came up to Sophie and me as people were heading to their cars. "You can come if you want," she said to both of us, but she was looking at Sophie, not me. "We'd love to," Sophie said quickly before I could decline. The lunch was every bit as uncomfortable as you'd imagine. Derek's parents sat at one end of the table with Derek and Emma, treating them like royalty. Sophie and I sat at the other end with Derek's friends, who largely ignored us. Every time I tried to catch Emma's eye to smile or acknowledge her, Derek was there, whispering to her, touching her hand, inserting himself between us. At one point, Linda, Derek's mom, stood up with a champagne glass. "I want to make a toast," she announced. "To Derek and Emma. Derek, you're the best son any mother could ask for. And Emma, Welcome to a family that will always support you unconditionally, no matter what. The no matter what felt pointed, like a jab at me. Sophie squeezed my hand under the table. After lunch, as people were saying goodbye, I approached Emma. Derek was talking to one of his friends, momentarily distracted. "Congratulations, sweetheart," I said. "I'm glad I could be here." "Thanks for coming, Dad," she said quietly. "I know it wasn't easy." "Emma, I want you to know that even though I have my doubts, I will always be here for you, always. If you need me for anything, I'm a phone call away." She nodded, tears forming again. "I wish things were different." "Me too. I wish you could just be happy for me." "I'm happy that you're happy. That's as honest as I can be right now." Derek materialized at her side. "Ready to go, babe?" He didn't acknowledge me at all, and just like that, they left. Emma looked back once as they walked to Derek's car, and the expression on her face haunts me. It wasn't the face of a blissfully happy newlywed. It was the face of someone who just crossed a bridge and wasn't sure it was the right one. Over the next week, I tried to text Emma a few times. Short messages. "Hope you're doing well. Love you. Thinking of you." She responded to maybe 1 out of every 5 texts with something brief like "thanks" or "love you too." Sophie reported that Emma and Derek were fighting a lot. Apparently, the reality of their financial situation was starting to set in. They still wanted the Napa wedding, but the loans they qualified for weren't enough to cover it. Derek was pressuring Emma to ask me for money again. Emma was refusing, saying she didn't want to give me the satisfaction. Then, about 2 weeks after the courthouse wedding, I got a call from an unknown number again. This time, it was Derek. "Mr. Morrison," he said, his voice tight and controlled. "We need to talk about Emma." My heart stopped. "Is she okay? What happened?" "She's fine, physically, but she's been really depressed since the wedding. She barely eats, she cries all the time, and it's because of you." "Excuse me?" "You heard me. Your disapproval, your judgment, the fact that you couldn't just support her decision, it's destroying her. And I think you owe it to your daughter to make this right." "And how exactly do you suggest I do that, Derek?" "Give us the money for the real wedding. Show Emma that you support us. Apologize for everything you said about me. And then back off and let us live our lives." I was speechless for a moment. The audacity of this guy. "Derek, let me be very clear. If Emma wants to talk to me, I'm here. If Emma needs me, I'm here. But I'm not negotiating my relationship with my daughter through you." "You're still trying to control her." "No, I'm trying to have a relationship with her that doesn't involve you as the middleman. Put Emma on the phone." "She doesn't want to talk to you right now." "Then why are you calling me?" "Because someone needs to tell you that you're tearing this family apart." "I'm tearing it apart. You're the one who's isolated her from everyone who cares about her." "I've done no such thing. Emma makes her own choices." "Does she? Or do you make them for her?" The line went dead. He'd hung up on me. I immediately called Sophie. "Did you know Derek was going to call me?" "What? No. What happened?" I told her about the conversation. Sophie was quiet for a long time. "Dad, Emma doesn't know he called you. I was with her today, and she would have mentioned it. Derek is doing this behind her back." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything. The wedding, the conversation with Derek, Emma's sad face in the parking lot. Around midnight, I made a decision that I knew was risky, but felt necessary. I wrote Emma a long email. I poured everything out, my concerns about Derek, my fears for her future, my regrets about how I'd handled things, but also my love for her and my commitment to being in her life, no matter what. I told her about Derek's phone call. I told her I would give her the full $40,500 I'd originally allocated for her wedding, but I wouldn't go beyond that, and it was her choice how to use it. I told her I loved her and I was sorry. I hit send at 1:47 a.m. and immediately regretted it. But it was done. 3 days passed with no response. Then, on day 4, I got a text from Emma's new number. She'd changed it again. "We need to talk. Can you meet me for coffee tomorrow at 2 p.m.? My hands were shaking as I typed back, "Of course. Where?" She named a coffee shop near her apartment. I spent the entire next day anxious, playing out 100 different scenarios in my head. When I arrived at the coffee shop, Emma was already there, sitting in the corner. She looked thin, tired. There were dark circles under her eyes. I sat down across from her. "Thank you for meeting me." "I read your email," she said without preamble. Like I read it 50 times. And I'm so angry at you, Dad. For everything. For not liking Derek. For making me feel like I had to choose. For being right about some things. That last part caught me off guard. "What do you mean?" Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Derek has been. He's not the person I thought he was. Or maybe he is, and I just didn't want to see it. I don't know anymore." My protective instincts kicked in immediately. "Emma, what's going on? Are you safe? Has he hurt you?" "Not physically," she said quickly. "But Dad, everything you said about him being controlling, I'm starting to see it. The way he talks about you and Mom and Sophie. The way he makes decisions about our money without really consulting me. The way he called you without telling me." "He told you about that?" "No. I saw it in his call log. We got into a huge fight about it. He said he was just trying to protect me from your manipulation." "Emma, and the thing is," she continued, "I don't even know what's real anymore. Is Derek actually manipulative? Or have you just convinced me to think that? Am I making a mistake? Or am I just letting your doubts poison my marriage before it even really starts? I love him, Dad. I really do. But I'm also miserable." We sat there for 2 hours. Emma told me everything. How Derek had been pushing her to cut contact with me completely. How he'd been monitoring her texts with Sophie. How every conversation about money turned into him accusing her of being too influenced by her family. She also told me that she'd been having second thoughts about the big Napa wedding. But Derek insisted they had to follow through because we can't let your father win. "Emma," I said carefully, "what do you want? Forget about me. Forget about Derek for a second. What do you want?" She broke down crying. "I don't know. I thought I knew, but everything is so messed up now." I reached across the table and held her hand. She didn't pull away. "Whatever you decide," I said, "I'm here. If you want to stay with Derek and work on the marriage, I'll respect that. If you want to leave, I'll help you. If you want to take time to figure it out, I'll wait. But Emma, you need to know that your happiness and safety are more important to me than being right." She squeezed my hand. "I think I made a mistake, Dad. I think I rushed into this because I was in love with the idea of getting married and proving everyone wrong, and now I don't know how to get out of it." My heart broke and soared at the same time. "You don't have to figure it all out today. Derek wants to sign the loan papers for the Napa wedding next week. It's a $90,000 loan, Dad. $90,000 in debt for one day. How did I think that was okay?" "We all make mistakes, sweetheart. I told you that you weren't invited to my life anymore. You were hurt and angry. I understand. I got married without really having you there. Not really. You were just present. And now every time I think about my wedding day, I feel sad. We talked until the coffee shop closed. When we left, Emma hugged me tight. I don't know what I'm going to do yet, she said. But thank you for not saying, I told you so. I would never, I said, even though part of me really wanted to. That was 4 days ago. Yesterday, Sophie called me in a panic. Dad, Emma told Derek she wants to postpone the Napa wedding and go to marriage counseling. He freaked out. He told her she was being manipulated by you and that if she postponed the wedding, it was over. What did Emma say? She said she needed time to think. She's staying at my apartment tonight. So now Emma is at Sophie's place. Derek is blowing up her phone with messages that alternate between apologetic and accusatory. And I'm sitting here wondering if I've actually helped the situation or made it worse by planting doubts in her head. Janet called me this morning and blamed me for ruining Emma's marriage before it even had a chance. My brother Mike says I need to stay out of it now and let Emma figure it out herself. Derek's parents are apparently telling everyone that I manipulated Emma into questioning the marriage and that I'm a narcissistic father who can't let go. And honestly, maybe they're right. Maybe I did manipulate her. Maybe my concerns were valid, but my delivery was so terrible that I've caused all of this chaos. Or maybe I genuinely saved my daughter from making a bigger mistake. I have no idea anymore. All I know is that Emma is crying at Sophie's apartment. Derek is demanding she come home and stop letting her father control her. And I'm sitting here with $4,200 that might not even matter anymore, because the whole thing might be falling apart. Sophie just texted me. Emma wants to know if your offer to help her no matter what included helping her if she wants to get an annulment. I don't even know how to answer that. I need to tell you what happened, because the last 2 weeks have been the most intense, emotionally exhausting period of my entire life. And I still don't know if I made the right choices. After Sophie texted me asking if my offer to help Emma no matter what included helping with an annulment, I sat in my car for about 20 minutes just staring at my phone. An annulment. My daughter had been married for less than 3 weeks and was already asking about an annulment. I texted back, yes, whatever Emma needs. Tell her I love her and I'm here. Sophie responded, can you come over? Emma wants to talk to you, but she's scared Derek will show up at a public place. I drove to Sophie's apartment going about 15 miles over the speed limit. When I got there, Emma opened the door and immediately fell into my arms, crying. Not the angry, frustrated crying from before. This was the kind of crying that comes from someone who's completely broken. I just held her and let her cry on my shoulder like I used to when she was little and had nightmares. We sat down in Sophie's living room. Emma looked horrible, and I don't mean that to be cruel. I mean she genuinely looked unwell. She'd lost weight, her skin was pale, and she had that look in her eyes that I'd seen once before, when she was in high school and got severely depressed after her best friend moved away. Dad, she started, her voice hoarse from crying. I think I made the biggest mistake of my life. Sophie brought her tissues and sat next to her on the couch, holding her hand. I sat in the chair across from them, trying to keep my own emotions in check. Tell me everything, I said. No judgment, I promise. And she did. For the next 3 hours, Emma told me things that made my blood boil. She told me how Derek had been reading her text messages to make sure your family isn't poisoning you against me. How he'd convinced her to give him access to her bank account. Because married couples should be transparent. How he'd been applying for credit cards in both their names without telling her. How he'd told her that if she loved him, she'd cut off contact with anyone who didn't support their marriage, meaning me, and increasingly, Janet and Sophie too. The worst part, Emma said, wiping her eyes, is that I let it happen. I saw the red flags, Dad. I saw them and I ignored them because I didn't want you to be right. I was so determined to prove that I knew what I was doing, that I was an adult who could make her own decisions, that I married someone who... She broke down again. Someone who what, sweetheart? Someone who scares me sometimes. Those words hit me like a truck. Has he threatened you? Has he put his hands on you? No, nothing like that. But the way he talks to me when he's angry, it's like he's a different person. Last night, when I told him I wanted to postpone the Napa wedding, he punched a hole in the wall right next to my head. Then he immediately apologized and cried and said he was just frustrated and stressed about money. But Dad, I flinched. I actually flinched because for a second I thought he was going to hit me. I wanted to get in my car, drive to wherever Derek was, and have a very different kind of conversation with him. But I stayed calm for Emma's sake. Where's Derek now? At our apartment. He thinks I'm at work. I called in sick today. Okay, here's what we're going to do. First, you're going to stay here with Sophie as long as you need to. Second, we're going to figure out the legal stuff, annulment, separation, whatever you decide. Third, I'm going to help you financially with whatever you need. And fourth, I paused, making sure she was looking at me. You're going to stop blaming yourself for this. Derek is responsible for Derek's behavior, not you. Emma nodded, crying again. Sophie spoke up. Dad, there's something else. Derek has been calling me nonstop, like 30 times in the last hour. He knows Emma is here. As if on cue, someone started pounding on the apartment door. Hard, aggressive. Emma! Derek's voice came through the door. I know you're in there. Open the fucking door. Emma went pale. Sophie looked terrified. I stood up. Stay here, I told them. I walked to the door but didn't open it. Derek, you need to leave, now. Mr. Morrison, of course you're here. Of course you are. You couldn't just let us be happy, could you? You had to poison her against me. Derek, I'm going to say this once. Emma doesn't want to talk to you right now. You need to leave, or I'm calling the police. She's my wife. You can't keep me from my wife. She's an adult who is choosing not to see you. That's her right. Emma! He pounded on the door again, and I heard something crack. Maybe the door frame. Baby, please just talk to me. Don't let him do this. Don't let him ruin us. Emma was sobbing on the couch. Sophie was on her phone, and I heard her say, Yes, I need police at... giving the address. The police are on their way, Derek. Leave now. There was silence for a moment. Then, this is your fault, all of it. You never gave me a chance. You never wanted her to be happy. That's not true, and you know it. She's going to realize she made a mistake leaving me. And when she does, you won't be welcome back in her life. I'll make sure of it. That's Emma's choice to make, not yours. I heard footsteps retreating down the hallway. A few minutes later, Sophie confirmed through the peephole that Derek was gone. The police showed up about 10 minutes after that, took statements from all of us, and said they'd file a report, but there wasn't much they could do. They'd do unless Derek actually broke in or made explicit threats. After they left, Emma said quietly, I married that man. I chose that man over my family. Emma, stop, I said firmly. Manipulation is insidious. Smart, capable people fall for it all the time. This is not your fault. Over the next few days, the situation spiraled in ways I never anticipated. Derek started a social media campaign, and I'm not exaggerating. He posted on Facebook, Instagram, everywhere, about how I was a controlling, abusive father who had manipulated Emma into leaving him. He painted himself as this devastated husband whose evil father-in-law had destroyed his marriage. And people believed him. People who didn't know the whole story saw a young man crying about his lost love and his terrible father-in-law, and they ate it up. I started getting messages from people I barely knew, calling me horrible names, telling me I was a monster. Derek's mother, Linda, called Janet and threatened to sue me for alienation of affection, which apparently is an actual legal thing in some states, though not in Texas. Janet, to her credit, told Linda exactly where she could shove her lawsuit. But the worst part was that some of Emma's friends took Derek's side. Her college roommate posted something like, "Sometimes parents can't let go and let their children be happy. Praying for Derek during this difficult time." Emma was devastated. She'd lost not just her husband but friends too. Meanwhile, Emma met with a lawyer to discuss her options. Because they'd been married less than a month and there were no children or significant shared assets, an annulment was possible, especially with evidence of coercion or fraud. The lawyer asked Emma a lot of hard questions about Derek's behavior, their finances, and how the marriage came about. "This is going to sound crazy," Emma told me after the meeting. But the lawyer asked if Derek had rushed the marriage, and I realized he did. Every time I said I wanted to slow down or wait, he'd get upset and say I didn't love him enough. I thought he was just eager to start our life together. But now I wonder if he was trying to lock me down before I figured out who he really was. The lawyer also discovered something alarming. Derek had opened 3 credit cards in Emma's name without her explicit knowledge. The applications had her information, but she didn't remember filling them out. Derek had charged about $15,000 across these cards, expenses for his business ventures that never materialized. "Can he do that?" Emma asked, horrified. "Is that legal?" "No," I said. "That's identity theft and fraud." Emma filed a police report about the credit cards. This escalated things with Derek to a nuclear level. He showed up at my house at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday. I woke up to him screaming in my front yard. "You've ruined my life. She was mine, and you took her from me." I called the police. Again. This time they arrested him for disturbing the peace and violating the informal agreement to stay away from our family. He spent the night in jail. When he got out, Derek's parents finally got involved in a more direct way. Linda and Frank asked to meet with me, Emma, and Janet together. Against my better judgment, we agreed, thinking maybe they'd be reasonable and help facilitate a peaceful separation. We were wrong. The meeting, held at a neutral location, a conference room at a local library, was a disaster. Linda came in hot, immediately accusing me of being a narcissistic parent who couldn't handle losing control of Emma. Frank, who'd been mostly quiet through everything, said I was emasculating Derek and that men need respect in their marriages. Janet, who'd been somewhat on the fence about everything, absolutely lost it on them. "Are you kidding me?" she shouted. "Your son committed fraud against our daughter. He punched a wall next to her head, and you're worried about his ego?" Linda started crying, saying we were making Derek out to be a monster when he was just passionate and going through a hard time. Emma, who'd been silent and small throughout the meeting, suddenly stood up. "Stop," she said quietly. Everyone turned to look at her. "Just stop, all of you." She looked at Derek's parents. "Linda, Frank, I cared about you. I really did. But your son stole from me. He controlled me. He isolated me from my family. And you're standing here defending him and attacking my dad, who has done nothing but try to protect me. Emma, honey, you're just confused, Linda said. Derek loves you so much. No, Emma interrupted. Derek loves controlling me. There's a difference, and I'm done. I'm getting an annulment. I'm pressing charges for the credit card fraud. And I need both of you to leave me alone. Linda looked shocked. Frank started to argue, but Janet cut him off. You heard her. Get out. They left, with Linda crying and Frank muttering about how we'd all regret this. After they were gone, Emma collapsed into her chair. I can't believe I almost let him ruin my life completely, she whispered. The annulment process took about 6 weeks total. During that time, Derek went through what I can only describe as a psychological breakdown. He created a blog dedicated to exposing me and my parental abuse. He tried to contact Emma through fake social media accounts. He showed up at her work twice before her boss threatened to get a restraining order. Emma finally did get a restraining order after Derek left dozens of voicemails in one night, escalating from apologetic to threatening. In one of them, he said, "You'll never find anyone who loves you like I do. You're making the biggest mistake of your life, and when you're old and alone, you'll realize I was the only one who ever really saw you." Hearing that voicemail made me want to find Derek and have a very unfatherly conversation with him. But my lawyer strongly advised against it. The credit card fraud case is still ongoing. Derek hired a lawyer who's arguing that Emma gave him implied permission to use her information because they were married. Emma's lawyer says that's bullshit, and we have a strong case. We'll see. Throughout all of this, Sophie was Emma's rock. She let Emma stay with her for 2 months, even though it meant Derek knew where Sophie lived and occasionally showed up to bang on her door too. Sophie got her own restraining order eventually. Janet, surprisingly, became one of Emma's biggest supporters. She apologized to both me and Emma for not seeing Derek's behavior for what it was earlier. I was so focused on wanting Emma to be happy and settled, she told me over coffee one day, that I ignored all the warning signs. I'm sorry, Jim. You were right about him. I wish I'd been wrong, I said honestly. My brother Mike helped me change all my locks and install security cameras after Derek's 2 a.m. visit. Your daughter married a psycho, Mike said bluntly. But hey, at least she figured it out fast. That's one way to look at it, I said. The annulment was finalized in late September, about 4 months after the courthouse wedding. Emma, Sophie, Janet, and I went out to dinner to celebrate, if you can call it celebrating. Emma said it felt more like mourning the person she thought Derek was. I keep thinking about all the red flags I missed, she said over pasta. The way he talked about his ex-girlfriends. They were all crazy or manipulative. The way he didn't have any long-term friends. The way he always had an excuse for why he was between jobs. It was all there, and I just didn't want to see it. You were in love, Janet said gently. We forgive a lot when we're in love. I was in love with a version of him that didn't exist, Emma corrected. The real Derek is the one who committed fraud and punched walls. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Sophie raised her wine glass. To Emma, for being brave enough to get out. We all clinked glasses. Emma cried a little, but she was smiling too. Now, here we are in late November. Emma is living in her own apartment. I helped her with the security deposit and first month's rent using some of that wedding money I'd saved. She's in therapy twice a week, working through everything. She's also taking a financial literacy course to understand how to protect herself and repair her credit after Derek's fraudulent charges. Sophie is back to her normal life, though she still checks her locks 3 times before bed because of Derek's visits. Janet and I are on better terms than we've been since the divorce. Trauma bonding, I guess. Derek, according to mutual acquaintances, is still posting on social media about how he was wronged and how Emma and I are terrible people. He's apparently dating someone new already, a girl who just turned 22. I hope someone warns her, but I'm staying out of it. As for the money, the $85,000 I'd saved for both daughters' weddings. Here's what happened with it. I gave Emma $20,000 to help her get back on her feet. New apartment, therapy, paying off some of the fraudulent charges while the legal case proceeds, and a financial cushion while she focuses on healing. I gave Sophie $10,000 as an early gift because she sacrificed so much to help her sister. The remaining $55,000 is still in the account, now designated for future daughter expenses, whether that's Sophie's wedding someday or helping Emma if she ever decides to get married again, which she swears she never will, but we'll see. Some people have told me I should have let Emma face all the natural consequences of her choices, that by helping her financially and emotionally, I enabled her to avoid taking full responsibility. My friend Tom, the financial advisor, said, "Jim, sometimes the best lessons are the ones we learn the hard way, alone." But I don't buy that. Yes, Emma made mistakes, but she also had the courage to admit them, leave an unhealthy situation, and rebuild her life. That's not enabling. That's supporting someone through a crisis. On the other hand, I've had people tell me I should have given her the full $60,000 from the beginning and avoided this whole disaster. If you just paid for the Napa wedding, my cousin said at Thanksgiving, Emma would be happily married right now. That one really bothered me because would she be happy? Or would she be $90,000 in debt, legally tied to an abuser, and even more isolated from her family? I genuinely believe that the conflict over money, as painful as it was, forced issues to the surface that might have stayed hidden for years otherwise. A few weeks ago, Emma and I were having breakfast together, something we do every Sunday now. And she brought it up unprompted. "Dad, I need to say something," she started. "When all this first happened, with you refusing to pay for the wedding, I thought you were the worst person in the world. I thought you were controlling and judgmental and cruel." I nodded, remembering those accusations vividly. "But now I understand that you were trying to protect me. You saw something I couldn't see or wouldn't see. And yes, maybe you could have handled it better. The whole 'you're not good enough for her' speech wasn't great." "Agreed," I said. "That was poorly done. But you were coming from a place of love. And when everything fell apart, you didn't say I told you so. You just helped me. You gave me a safe place to land. And I don't know if I ever properly thanked you for that. Emma, you're my daughter. Of course I helped you." "Not every parent would," she said quietly. "Some parents would say, 'You made your bed, now lie in it.' But you didn't. Even when I was horrible to you, even when I cut you out of my life, you were still there when I needed you. So, thank you, Dad. Thank you for being stubborn enough to stand up to Derek, and thank you for being loving enough to catch me when I fell." I cried. Right there in the IHOP, I cried like a baby. The waitress probably thought someone died. "I'd do it all again," I told her. "Every uncomfortable conversation, every fight, all of it. You're worth fighting for." So now I'm here, telling this whole story to internet strangers, still not entirely sure if I was the hero or the villain of this situation. Did I save my daughter from a terrible marriage? Or did I create a self-fulfilling prophecy by opposing it so strongly that it was doomed from the start? I think about Derek sometimes. Not with anger anymore, just with sadness. He's a troubled person who hurt my daughter, yes. But he's also someone's son, someone who clearly has issues that need professional help. I hope he gets that help before he hurts someone else. I think about what would have happened if I'd handled things differently. If I'd smiled and written the check and welcomed Derek with open arms. Would Emma have figured out who he really was eventually? Or would she still be trapped? I think about Sophie, who got dragged into all of this mess and handled it with more maturity than many adults would have. She's getting $10,000 for her trouble. But more importantly, she and Emma are closer than ever now. I think about Janet and how it took our daughter's crisis to remind us that we're still a team when it comes to our kids. And I think about Emma, beautiful, smart, kind Emma, who made a mistake and had the courage to fix it. She's dating again now, casually. She's happy at work. She's rebuilding her credit and her confidence. She still has nightmares sometimes about Derek showing up, but they're getting less frequent. Last week, Emma sent me a text. "Dad, I met someone. It's super early. Nothing serious. But I want you to meet him eventually. I want your opinion. Is that weird?" "Not weird at all," I texted back. "That's trust, and I'm honored." "Just promise me you won't scare this one away," she added. "I promise to give him a fair chance," I wrote. "But if he's another Derek, all bets are off." Deal. Love you, Dad. Love you too, sweetheart. So that's where we are. Emma is healing. Our family is healing. And I'm left wondering if any parent really knows if they're doing the right thing in the moment. Or if we all just hope that our love is enough to guide us through the hard choices. Was I wrong to refuse to pay for the wedding? Was I right to stand my ground? Should I have intervened sooner or stayed out of it completely? I've gotten hundreds of opinions from family, friends, therapists, lawyers, and random people who've heard pieces of this story. Everyone has a different take. Some people think I'm a hero who saved his daughter. Others think I'm a controlling parent who got lucky that things turned out this way. Some think Emma's the victim of Derek's manipulation. Others think she made her own choices and has to own them. Some think I should have paid for the wedding regardless. Others think I should have cut her off completely to teach her a lesson. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle of all of that. I'm a flawed father who made some good choices and some bad ones, trying to protect a daughter who made some bad choices, but ultimately made a good one when it mattered most. Derek was absolutely a manipulative person who targeted my daughter and tried to isolate her from her family. But I also could have handled my initial concerns more diplomatically instead of telling him to his face that he wasn't good enough. Those things can both be true. Emma was manipulated and victimized by Derek's behavior. But she also chose to ignore red flags and push away people who loved her. Those things can both be true too. I was trying to protect my daughter from a toxic relationship, but I was also imposing my will on her life and using money as leverage. Both true. The wedding money was my way of expressing love and support for my daughters. But it was also a tool for control, whether I meant it that way or not. Both true. Life is messy. Families are complicated. And sometimes the right choice feels wrong, while the wrong choice feels right, and you don't know which is which until years later when you can see the whole picture. All I know for sure is this. My daughter is safe. She's out of a bad situation. Our relationship is stronger than it's been in years. And if I had to do it all over again, knowing it would lead to months of pain and conflict and uncertainty, I'd make the same choice. Because Emma is worth fighting for, even when I'm fighting her. The annulment is final. The legal cases are proceeding. Derek is out of our lives, and Emma is free to figure out who she wants to be without someone controlling her every move. So I'm asking you all now, after hearing this entire saga from beginning to end, was I the villain? Was I the hero? Was I both? Was I neither? Give this video a like if you made it all the way through this crazy story, and subscribe to Who's the Villain? AETA for more family drama and moral dilemmas. Drop a comment with your rating from 0 to 10. How much of a villain do you think I was in this situation? And more importantly, tell me, if you were in my position, what would you have done differently? Because honestly, I'm still figuring that out myself.